During the Second World War, the German Nazis steamrolled through Europe when they saw cultural artifacts like beautiful Renaissance paintings or sculptures. They stole them. They didn't destroy them. They hoarded them as Hitler's personal property, really. Well, today, Muslim Nazis are rampaging through the Middle East. In the ancient city of Nineveh, they came upon rare, ancient cultural artifacts. They didn't steal them, they smashed them. Take a look at this propaganda video that they made of themselves destroying priceless artifacts.
غيوم القهر والغلب الله أكبر حطم دولة الصنم ذاقت جهنم للأصنام والحطم الله أكبر حطم وفي مزيد هل الأيام سانحة فتنزف الدم أمريكا بلا الركب ذوقوا العذاب جنود الشرك لست أرى إلا بقايا عظام من أبي لهب.
Oh, they're into book burning too, Nazi style, but imagine how anti-civilization, anti-culture you are to destroy priceless art and pat yourself on the back as if it's a holy mission. But we don't have to go to Nineveh to find such fascists. We can look in our own country. Even in Edmonton, take a look at this story that the CBC ran about a Muslim girl in Edmonton radicalized with her own family's semi-knowledge and then running off to join the Islamic State.
Looking back, there were warning signs. She started wearing a niqab just like this, started watching ISIS propaganda, and dropped out of college to study the Quran full-time online with a teacher in Edmonton. Canada's spy agency warned the family the ISIS flag was her sister's Twitter photo.
CSIS approached my family. They told us that she had been interacting with people that were influencing her in a negative way. She has clearly told me in a conversation that they followed her all along, every step of the trip, and that they approached her and they tried to stop her, but they didn't physically detain her, which I don't understand.
The power to detain suspected terror recruits, even cancel their flights, is in proposed legislation to boost CSIS's ability to stop ISIS. But still, she says Canadian officials should have done more.
There's a few things about that video that caught my eye. First of all, the sister who allegedly didn't know anything about what her own sister was doing, fine, let's accept that. But when CSIS comes to visit the family, to warn the family that one of their daughters is getting involved with the Islamic State, they don't go into crisis mode, intervention mode, lock down the internet and scare her straight mode. They actually complain that CSIS didn't do more about their own family. What would they have had CSIS do? Well, you saw at the end there, this CBC reporter saying that Bill C-51 that Stephen Harper has proposed would allow CSIS to do things like shut down a plane ticket. I thought the CBC was against that, but I guess in this story they got wrapped up with it. I think this is a fascinating note, but let me ask you this. Who was that Muslim woman in Edmonton who was the recruiter, the one teaching the extreme view of the Quran? Why is that not the focus? Well, I suppose it's the same reason why this Muslim imam from Edmonton hasn't been shut down either. Remember this guy?
لماذا الجماعة الإرهابية؟ لأنها تدعو إلى عودة الخلافة. إذا أنا إخوان. أنا إرهابي.
That's Sharif Mahdi, an imam who preaches every week in Edmonton extremist ideas. You heard him say that, you know, if supporting an Islamic State makes you a terrorist, then he's one. You have people like that preaching to impressionable young minds, and you wonder why people go join the Islamic State? We showed you that clip weeks ago. We put it on a website called CanadianJihad.ca, and nothing. Why isn't the CBC reporting on that? Well, the consensus media doesn't like to talk about that because it's a little bit too difficult for them to say that there is extremism being preached in mosques in Canada. Here's Thomas Mulcair saying it never happens, no way, no how.
And it was irresponsible of the Prime Minister to throw the mosques into his comments. It was a form of Islamophobia, and it was wrong. So he should realize that he was wrong to do that and simply apologize to the Muslim community.
Well, yeah, it does happen in Canada, and maybe one day the mainstream media, the consensus media, will get over their own political correctness and report on it. A funny thing happened on CBC's discussion show yesterday, hosted by Evan Solomon. A left-wing activist named Ian Capstick, who's affiliated with the NDP, he finally had his come-to-truth moment, sort of, about Islamic extremism. Listen to him try and break out of his political correct mode in his own way. Take a listen.
We should be passing laws that are very specifically against radicalization and radicalization by ISIS or ISIL, not dissimilar to the German laws. I think that we should also be going forward and banning a whole host of sort of the feeder religions into this as well. We should be going aggressively
banning.
After,
sorry, what is banning a feeder religion?
So ISIS is a cult, and there are a whole host of other Islamic faiths that sit around the edges of what are legitimate faiths within the Islamic circle that are not legitimate, that preach terrorism within, I mean, for heaven's sakes, I know I sound vaguely like Ezra Levant at this moment, but we do in fact have imams within
put
Canada.
Some glasses on, yeah.
Well, no, but we do have imams within Canada who are preaching hateful things on Canadian soil.
But that's hate speech.
Some of it is and some of it isn't, because when we really take a look at some of the roots of some of these particular religions, they shouldn't be operating on Canadian soil. I mean, Germans have banned Scientology. I don't think that's a bad idea either.
Okay. I'm not touching that.
Yeah, it was sort of weird, wasn't it? He said, oh, I'm sounding like Ezra Levant. No, you don't have to sound like Ezra Levant to be afraid of Islamic terrorism and extremism right here in Canada. I think that Ian Capstick has an authoritarian impulse there, banning feeder religions. What's a feeder religion? It sounds like me that Capstick realizes that there is radical Islam in Canada that believes in the jihad, violent terrorism, but he thinks that that's somehow got nothing to do with the Quran itself or Islam itself. It's almost like he believes Barack Obama, who says, oh, the Islamic State is not Islamic, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, all these Islamic groups, they're not really Muslim. Well, I suppose Barack Obama could be your authority on that, or maybe the leader of the Islamic State himself. Al-Baghdadi is his name, who has a PhD in Islamic studies. What Capstick hasn't come to terms with is that Islam and the Quran itself have jihad embedded within them, and that you can't ban a feeder religion unless you're willing to ban a religion in itself. These are difficult things for a leftist to come to terms with. Capstick didn't do a good job on it, but at least he understands we're in jeopardy. The Islamic State doesn't just hate Jews, doesn't just hate moderate Muslims or Yazidis or Christian Arabs. They hate gays. Take a look at this. Islamic State terrorists throwing someone they say is gay, maybe he is, maybe he isn't, throwing him off the roof of a building in their Islamic State. When one of them survives, they're stoned to death by the crowd below. I suppose those are the moderates below. The extremists are the ones throwing them off the roofs. I understand why Ian Capstick, a leftist gay activist, is concerned about the Islamic State. I like the fact that he's thinking about tough things that they normally don't talk about on the CBC. Remember, that's a station where you can't even say the word terrorist, according to their official ombudsman. These are dangerous days. It's good to see a flicker of hope in Ian Capstick, even if his first impulse is authoritarian. But we have to have this discussion. I promise you, you'll get it on the pages of TheRebel.media.